trolling Senator Elizabeth Warren as a snake, and in post after post, labeling Mayor Pete Buttigieg a rat. Two victims of this tell CNN they were so afraid of the online attacks they faced, they don't even want us to describe the circumstances for fear it would start up again. They both just questioned the politics of Bernie Sanders in a public setting, and their personal lives were exposed and attacked.
Well, just what Nick said, I think that's right. I mean, there is no Democratic establishment anymore. There's not even a Democratic Party anymore. The Democratic Party is a meaningless notion that the party, like the Republican Party, has been hollowed out and privatized to a large extent. There are Democratic elites, and so when we're talking about the Democratic establishment, we're really talking about a number of, a bunch of people that Nick also knows well, which really means Democratic donors.
This is the most important election in the history of our country.
This election is the most important in the modern history of this country.
The election in 2020, without hyperbole, is going to be the most important election this country has undergone in over 100 years. Not a joke.
This November's elections are more important than any I can remember in my lifetime, and that includes when I was on the ballot.
There are just 8 days left in what is the most important election of our lifetime.
Where did you guys come to a conclusion about why Clinton had such a hard time just owning that she did something wrong with the email server?
You know, I know that Russia and other forces would love us to have a debate. This is exactly what they want. They want us to have a debate about the internal structure of Hillary's campaign, what's true, what's not true. And I'm just not going to play that. I'm sorry.
We came, we saw, we died.
I was the CIA director. We lied, we cheated, we stole. It's like we had entire training courses. It reminds you of the glory of the American experiment.
You know, people have said, if you look at, for example, the heat that ended up around the bend the knee, Colin Kaepernick. Mm-hmm. Many smart people have said it actually was not a thing. The Russian bots started taking out. Yes.
But I saw my mom. My mom is the strongest woman I know.
She should be running.
This is not about.
If you're like me, one of the millions suffering from pain caused by migraine, Nurtec ODT may help. It's the only medication that can treat a migraine when it strikes and prevent migraine attacks.
Trump and the Republicans lose on Tuesday, and if they lose badly, it's not going to be because of the left, whatever that means. It's not because of the 50 Antifa black mask guys who roam around the United States breaking windows and committing mayhem, most of whom are probably paid police informers.
Most of whom are probably paid police informers.
Rudy Giuliani, there's only three things he mentioned in a sentence, a noun and a verb and 9/11. I mean...
I'm going to try to get through this. Thank you for what you did 3 years ago today.
And I went to Wall Street in December of 2007, before the big crash that we had, and I basically said, cut it out.
And now I want to hand it over to the president of Ukraine, who has as much courage as he has determination. Ladies and gentlemen, President Putin. If we finally beat Medicare.
Thank you, President. Bye.
This version of Biden, intellectually, analytically, is the best Biden ever.
He is sharp, intensely probing, and detail-oriented and focused.
They're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there. And this is what's happening in our country.
I can't do it.
We'll do it live.
Okay.
We'll do it live. Fuck it. Do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live. And thing sucks.
In 5, 4, 3.
Citizens of the internet, coming at ya. We are back with another exciting episode of the Polyticks Show, and we've got a lot to talk about tonight. Watching my intro reel, just kind of as I'm getting ready and everything, I think it's I got to give myself a little bit of credit on that, just because the whole thing is, just there's these clips of Kamala talking about how Russia did the Colin Kaepernick thing, and then Biden is being sharp, and and then it cuts to Trump saying they're eating dogs and stuff. It's just a parade of our fucking god awful political choices in this country. But torpedoes be damned, things are moving ahead, and I'm an optimist. I'm a misty-eyed optimist, just like Misty from Twitter and Jimmy's fill-in shows and Do Dissidents. If there's anything you could say about her, she's an optimist. That was complete sarcasm, by the way. I just made the connection because of the term misty-eyed. But there's good things happening despite the noise. And one of those things, I think, is the Trump-Putin summit that just happened. And I want to go into the weeds on quite a bit on this for a lot of reasons. But, when he was running, he was saying, I'll end that war in a day. And it was kind of telling how gleeful certain people were that it didn't end as quickly as he wanted it to. But there's too much going on. There's too many cooks in the kitchen. How would you say that? How would I adapt that metaphor to a war? There's too many generals in the war room. Maybe there's too many cooks in the kitchen. And I just, as someone who grew up propagandized by Russian, Cold War propaganda, everything, the Russians are bad. It's good to finally, even though nothing is final yet, it's good to see a world leader interacting with Russia, a U.S. leader, I should say, not a world leader, a U.S. leader interacting. I mean, a U.S. leader is a world leader, let's be honest. Any major country's leader is a world leader. But it's good to see a U.S. leader interacting directly with Russia again. And the theme of today's episode is going to be the New York Cope, because as you'll see, as we kind of proceed through a lot of these stories, there is a foundation, an intellectual foundation that a lot of these people's world over the last 10 years or so has been built around. And I have some bad news for them, because these types of people, for example.
I heart porn star Dick. The retired Army Colonel Douglas McGregor said on Fox last night, quote, "Their casualties are horrific. We have effectively seen the Russians destroy 3 separate armies built by the Ukrainians, and everybody is beginning to wonder what's really happening."
So, I mean, that's just to show you, that's Keith Olbermann from several years ago doing pro-war propaganda. And because a lot of this stuff is coming unraveled, and we're gonna definitely go into some minute details for you here. These people are just clinging as hard as they can to whatever's left of their, diminishing sanity. When you watch the New York Times, I mean, these are people that they tried to convince everybody that the president was a secret Russian spy, and we just didn't have the right evidence to prove it. I mean, if there was even the smallest bit of verifiable evidence that Trump was a secret Russian spy, There's no way they would have let him stay in the White House as long as they did. But I digress. Fast forward to this past weekend. It's Sunday night, so I guess it was Saturday, Friday. I don't, depending on what time zone they were in. Putin and Trump had an in-person meeting in front of a sign that said "Pursuing Peace." And I don't care who you are. I don't care what your political, stripes are. That's a good thing. That's a step in the right direction. So I'm going to play a little bit of that. I don't want to play the whole thing. It's about the whole press conference they did together was about 10 minutes total. But let's watch some of it. We'll take it as it goes.
Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, our negotiations have been held in a constructive.
Thanks for tuning in tonight for my Putin propaganda hour, guys. Putin propaganda for you tonight.
That's beautiful, man. Active atmosphere of mutual respect. We have very thorough negotiations that were quite useful. I would like to thank once again my American counterpart for the proposal to travel out here to Alaska.
So I'm going to just jump up because
that we've met.
What I want you to hear. So a couple of interesting things I noticed here. Just some of them are, meaningless. But first of all, notice how much larger physically Trump is than Vladimir Putin. He's a much larger dude. He's a pretty big dude, I think, in general. And then look, I couldn't help but notice this. Two very weird, odd things I noticed. First of all, the peace thing seems to, engulf both of them. They both have that peace repeated on either side of them. And then their shadows, look at the shadows in the center. It's just a weird kind of like juxtaposition with those shadows, like they're like Trump's giant shadow looming over Putin in the shadow in the middle. But I'm going to jump up. So Putin says a lot of nice stuff and basically kind of says, hey, thanks, Trump, for talking to me. Like the last guy didn't even talk to me. And it's interesting, like Trump's, even his energy here is kind of diminished. Like you can tell, like he's actually very quiet through a lot of it. And when he does talk, he doesn't seem like as exuberant as he normally is. He kind of seems a little defeated if you listen to his tone. But anyway, let me just jump up here.
The primary roots, the primary causes of that conflict, and we've said it multiple times, to consider all legitimate concerns of Russia and to reinstate a just balance of security in Europe and in the world on the whole. And I agree with President Trump, as he has said today, that naturally the security of Ukraine should be ensured as well. Naturally, we are prepared to work on that. I would like to hope that the agreement that we've reached together will help us bring closer that goal and will pave the path towards peace in Ukraine. We expect that Kiev and European capitals will perceive that constructively and that they won't throw a wrench in the works. They will not make any attempts to use some backroom dealings to conduct provocations to torpedo the nascent progress.
So that right there, he says something there about what's been going on, really, how Trump has actually been kind of trying to get this wound down, but there's so much money flowing in because of it. There's a lot of people aligned against it. And so what he's talking about is people try to torpedo the peace effort here. And we'll get to more on that in just a few minutes.
Incidentally, when the new administration came to power, bilateral trade started to grow. It's still very symbolic. Still, we have a growth of 20%. As I've said, we have a lot of dimensions for joint work. It is clear that
So right off the bat, you have a very kind of like friendly sounding Putin, like, hey, we want to work with you. We've already, a lot of what we've done so far is symbolic, but the new administration's much more willing to, work together.
U.S. and Russian investment and business cooperation has tremendous potential. Russia and the U.S. can offer each other so much in trade, digital, high-tech, and in space exploration. We see that Arctic cooperation is also very possible, and our international context, for example, between the Far East of Russia and the West Coast of the US. Overall, it's very important for our countries to turn the page, to go back to cooperation. It is symbolic that not far away from here, at the border between Russia and the US, there was a so-called international date line. I think you can step over, literally, from yesterday into tomorrow. And I hope we'll succeed in that, in political.
Isn't that how nice and quiet Trump is being and respectful? But also, it was so surreal for me to see this Putin and the president of the U.S. standing in front of a backdrop that says "pursuing peace." Did I just start this over like an asshole? Yeah, probably. So let me just play a little bit more of this.
Positive events have to do are result-oriented, and we see that the president of the U.S. has...
Hold on, let me go back a little bit.
Can step over, literally, from yesterday into tomorrow. And I hope we'll succeed in that, in political sphere. I would like to thank...
So he's making this analogy. This is like his little speech was kind of like making an analogy about how there's a date line between the Bering Strait where Alaska and the Russia are the closest, and how you can step forward into the future from there. And he's like, I hope that that was his cute. That was Putin being cute. Oh, buddy, that's so cute. Oh, Putin. You're so cute. I was looking for this.
That's
beautiful, man.
Away from here, at the border between Russia and the U.S., there was a so-called international date line. I think you can step over, literally, from yesterday into tomorrow. And I hope we'll succeed in that, in political sphere. That's beautiful, man. Trump for our joint work, for the well-wishing and trustworthy tone of our conversation. It's important that both sides are result-oriented, and we see that the president of the U.S. has a very clear idea of what he would like to achieve. He sincerely cares about prosperity of his nation. Still, he understands that Russia has its own national interests. I expect that today's agreements will be the starting point, not only for the solution of the Ukrainian issue, but also will help us bring back business-like and pragmatic relations between Russia and the U.S. And in the end, I would like to add one more thing. I'd like to remind you that in 2022, during the last contact with the previous administration, I tried to convince my previous American colleague that the situation should not be brought to the point of no return when it would come to hostilities. And
so there's Putin right there throwing Biden under the bus. Not that Biden had any clue what was going on, but
said it quite directly back then that it's a big mistake. Today, when President Trump saying that if he was the president back then, there will be no war. And I'm quite sure that it would indeed be so. I can confirm that. I think that overall, me and President Trump have built a very good, business-like and trustworthy contact. And I have every reason to believe that moving down this path, we can come, and the sooner the better, to the end of the conflict in Ukraine. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. President. That was very profound. And I will say that I believe we had a very productive meeting. There were many, many points that we agreed on. Most of them, I would say, a couple of big ones that we haven't quite gotten there, but we've made some headway.
See, Trump seems a little disappointed. I noticed. He's like, well, we had. You're gonna get a little bit of background on that in just a minute when we dive deeper into this.
So there's no deal until there's a deal. I will call up NATO in a little while. I will call up the various people that I think are appropriate, and I'll, of course, call up President Zelensky and tell him about today's meeting. It's ultimately up to them.
He better be wearing a suit this time.
have to agree with what Marco and Steve and some of the great people from the Trump administration who've come here, Scott and John Radcliffe. Thank you very much.
Gang
We also have some tremendous Russian business representatives here, and I think everybody wants to deal with us. We've become the hottest country anywhere in the world.
See, he even sounds like everybody wants to deal with us. We're the hottest country in the world, you guys. I swear, so hot, like fire.
For a short period of time, and we look forward to that. We look forward to dealing. We're going to try and get this over with. We really made some.
We're going to try and get this over with. See, and that's the thing that is so difficult, I'm sure, in politics, or like a guy like Trump, who is the kind of guy who could like unilaterally take control of a construction project and do whatever he wanted to get it completed. He's dealing with a lot more dynamics in a political position where he can't just take the reins. It's not just a company thing where he's the CEO. Like he has to deal with all these different, interests and forces at play. So it takes a lot more time to cut through, I'm sure, when you have to juggle those kind of dynamics.
Great progress today. I've always had a fantastic relationship with President Putin, with Vladimir. We had many tough meetings, good meetings. We were interfered with by the Russia hoax. It made it a little bit tougher to deal with.
Trump is just so funny to listen to. Interfered, the Russia hoax. No one's ever seen anything like it.
But he understood it. I think he's probably seen things like that during the course of his career. He's seen it all. But we had to put up with the Russia hoax. He knew it was a hoax, and I knew it was a hoax. But what was done was very criminal. But it made it harder for us to deal as a country in terms of the business and all of the things that we'd like to have dealt with. But
It's that kind of candor thing that he does is funny because there's truth to it, and it's like and there, because that did cause a lot of the anti-Russian hysteria. And it did work to grease the skids of the American mind to support this kind of a war. But I want to go now to your boys, the Alexes from the Duran, because they have a lot more, like a deeper insight into this, and kind of like some follow-up reporting after the actual summit happened. So here is the Duran talking about this. The Duran, sorry.
As Putin told Trump.
Duran.
In English.
The Alexes. I call them the Alexes.
The Istanbul Plus agreement capitulation will be signed in Moscow. Is that where we're heading towards? The breaking news, Alexander, is that Trump was speaking to the Europeans, to NATO, as well as to Zelensky on the plane trip back to D.C. And Zelensky will be heading to the White House tomorrow. Very convenient of him to be in London. I don't know if that was coincidence. Maybe not. But
wait, before we go to this too, I just want to. I got a little bit ahead of myself. Let me go back to this Trump Putin clip because I want to play. I want you to see what Putin says at the very end, real quick. If you didn't see it.
But we had an extremely productive meeting, and many points were agreed to. There are just a very few that are left. Some are not that significant. One is probably the most significant, but we have a very good chance of getting there. We didn't get there, but we have a very good chance of getting there. I would like to thank President Putin and his entire team, who I know in many cases, other than that, whose faces I get to see all the time in the newspapers. You're almost as famous as the boss, but especially this one right over here. But we had some good meetings over the years, right? Good, productive meetings over the years, and we hope to have that in the future. But let's do the most productive one right now. We're going to stop really 5,000, 6,000, 7,000, thousands of people a week from being killed, and President Putin wants to see that as much as I do. So
I gotta say too, another thing I do like about Trump on this foreign policy thing is that he says stuff like that, and he says it enough that I think he actually means it. You know what I mean? Like he's one of those stream of consciousness guys who just says kind of rambles a lot. But he's said this repeatedly. I want to stop people from dying. I want to stop people from dying. This is going to stop a lot of people from dying. I appreciate that.
Again, Mr. President, I'd like to thank you very much, and we'll speak to you very soon and probably see you again very soon. Thank you very much.
Listen to this.
Next time in Moscow.
Oh, that's an interesting one. I don't know. I'll get a little heat on that one, but I can see it possibly happening. Thank you very much.
I can see it possibly. I'll get a lot of heat for that one, but I can see it possibly happening. That's so good. Okay, so to jump over to the Duran now and get some like real in-depth.
We'll have a good chance when this is over. So
commentary
just
on
to
this.
put it very quickly, I'm going to start.
Hold on a second. Let me get this out of here. Keep going back to the same goddamn. Here we go.
He will be in DC, and according to Axios and their sources, Trump told the Europeans and Zelensky on the phone call that Russia is looking for a peace agreement, a comprehensive settlement to the conflict in Ukraine, and not a ceasefire. And then Trump posted on Truth Social pretty much what Axios was reporting. So he pretty much confirmed Axios is reporting. And to me, that signals Istanbul Plus. My sense of things are that Putin and his team, they sat down with Trump and his team, and they explained the situation. Most importantly, they explained the military situation. I'm sure they explained the economic situation, the sanctions situation, how nothing is working with all of the sanctions. I'm sure they went over all of.
So I was trying to find it. Just quick sidebar. I was trying to find it, but after this happened, Trump did kind of like an interview with Hannity, and Hannity made this comment about how like the Russia's being crippled by all the stuff we're doing, and I wish that it disappeared from the. I think some people covered it live, but it disappeared from my history. I think they pulled it. Like it actually stopped while I was watching it. So I think it was a live broadcast, and they just pulled it. I tuned in later, or whatever, but. It was interesting how disconnected I think a lot of the people here are from the reality of what's actually going on. So what he's kind of talking about here is, Putin's team kind of just reiterating the fact that, hey, look, sanction us all you want. China will buy our oil. We have BRICS now. You guys can't really just do that anymore. So it's just not going to work.
It, the Russian economy, everything. But most importantly, they talked about the situation on the ground, on the front lines, and how catastrophic it is for Ukraine. And Istanbul Plus is still on the table. June 2024 root causes. That has not changed from June 2024. So that's still on the table. And
so what he's talking about is they did some peace talks in Istanbul last year, and kind of like what Russia offered then is still on the table, basically.
Looks like that is what Trump discussed with the Europeans and with Ukraine. So, Alexander, your sense of things.
Absolutely. And I think you're absolutely correct. And I think you summarized the situation absolutely clearly. A few quick things to say. Reports in London are suggesting that this call between Trump, the European leaders, and Zelensky was a very difficult one. They weren't happy. And it's unsurprising that they were not happy because for the last couple of months, ever since March, they've all been singing the same hymn, which is that they want a unconditional ceasefire along the existing front lines. Now, the Russians have never agreed to that.
Also, you don't get to dictate the terms when you're losing a war that you started. Let's be clear about that.
Proposed to them by Trump on the 18th of March, Putin responded. If you remember, he said that there were all these nuances, that there were all these problems. He wanted an end to all sorts of military supplies to the Ukrainians, intelligence assistance, all that kind of thing. And of course, that was not something the Americans, the Ukrainians, or the Europeans were prepared to agree to. But a ceasefire of any kind, which could very easily evolve into a freeze of the conflict, was never what the Russians ever wanted. The Russians now are in an extremely strong position. Their military is breaking through in Donbass. The situation on the front lines is catastrophic for Ukraine. There are articles in the British media that are now admitting as much. The Daily Telegraph published an article yesterday saying that Ukraine has lost and Russia has won. That is an astonishing thing for the British media to admit. And by the way, if you went to the thread and read the shock on the part of some of the readers who've obviously been told something completely different for the last 3.5 years, well, I mean, you can just probably guess how profound that shock was.
Being lied to. The readers
Being lied to,
for 3 years.
being lied to, and being in denial about it. And
We got this guy to blame too.
Keep on bombing lots of people. Keep on bombing lots of people.
Unable to cope with the information and the news and all of that. So anyway, the military situation is catastrophic. And as we discussed, as I went into great detail to explain on my channel, the makeup of the Russian team that Putin brought with him to Alaska made it absolutely clear what Putin was there to talk about. Obviously, the military situation, about which the Americans are fairly well informed already, one must assume, but also the realities about the Russian economy, the fact that the sanctions are not working in the way that the Europeans insist they are, and the way Zelensky constantly talks they are, the way that some people, Lindsey Graham, are pretending in the United States. That is why Anton Siluanov, the Russian finance minister, was there, because he knows more about the sanctions in Russia than almost anyone else. He was there to explain to the Americans, to Scott Bessent, who was also there, the US Treasury Secretary, who is in charge of sanctions. The sanctions originate from within the Treasury, and they're enforced by the Treasury, the US Treasury. So Siluanov was there to explain to the Americans, look, these sanctions, these tariffs that you're talking about, Lindsey Graham's blockbuster, bone-crunching sanctions bill, not only are they not going to work, not only are they not going to crush our economy, they risk crushing yours instead. They will inflate oil and energy prices. They will trigger further inflation. They will cause many more problems for you. So this is why the Russians agreed to this meeting in Alaska. It was to explain all this in person to the Americans. That's why the meeting was much shorter than people anticipated, because the Americans, to some extent, know this already.
That's also why probably Trump seemed a little deflated.
This is why Donald Trump, again, was so careful to say, this is not my war, it's Joe Biden's war. I didn't get America into this mess. This is why Vladimir Putin was so careful over the course of his press conference to say the same thing. If I'd been talking with Donald Trump, who is somebody who listens, we would never have got into this mess in the first place. It was Biden and the people in Europe who launched us into this economic war with all the disastrous consequences that we can see. That is the subtext of it. And Putin told the Americans, ceasefires really aren't the solution here. We need a comprehensive settlement. We need to go to the root causes of the problem. He used those very words in that short press conference. They're all there. It's distilled, single, clear paragraph. We need the root causes to be addressed. We need Russia's security interests to be addressed. We need a situation that restores balance to the situation, balance and security to the situation in Europe and, by the way, globally as well. So translate that, Istanbul Plus. This is what Putin said. This is the basis upon which this crisis can be negotiated and settled. Maybe we can negotiate on the edges of certain things. Territory isn't the key issue, however. Security is the key issue. That is why the war happened. Trump listened.
See, and if you listen to the neocons and the neoliberals and the Blinkens of the world, they act like Putin is trying to take over Europe. But he's never said that. They can't point to a speech where he's like, I'm going to take over Europe. And I almost clipped this debate that Matt Duss and John Mearsheimer did on Democracy Now!, but I don't want to bore you with that shit. And Democracy Now! Has been bad for a long time. These guys are much better. But I have one more piece of, I got a nice little icing for this cake. Let's put it that way.
Trump understood this. I think Scott Bessent, who, by the way, said an incredibly tough thing to the Europeans before the summit. He said, if you Why are you harping on sanctions all the time? If you want to do something, just go ahead and do it. Otherwise, put up or shut up. Extraordinarily strong language addressed to the Europeans by the US Treasury Secretary, gone almost entirely unreported in Europe, by the way. That must have been a shock. So a comprehensive settlement.
Gone almost entirely unreported in Europe, by the way.
Istanbul Plus is the only basis upon which the Russians are going to settle. The Americans are coming round to that idea. Trump told.
I just want to say, quick sidebar. You know me, I like my sidebars, but it does kind of seem like Europe and, the Democratic Party kind of establishment were working together towards this kind of like vast censorship blanket. And the COVID thing was kind of the peak of that. And it's really, really great, in my opinion, to see the United States kind of like, whether I agree with what they're 100% with, the current administration or not, just having the balls to be like, yo, fuck off, Europe. Like, we're the United States. We're not Europe, And I love Europe, don't get me wrong. And Europe has a lot more history than we do. But also, it's pretty obvious what's going on. You know what I mean? Like, Trump was elected by the American public on a platform of ending this war, and they're doing everything they can to stop that from happening. So, this type of posturing from people like Besant and Trump towards Zelensky and these people who are just basically sucking billions and billions of dollars out of our economy for this war, you love to see it, right?
The Europeans and Zelensky. There has to be a comprehensive settlement. The Russians have set out the framework. There is no other way to end this thing. The only other way is to see the war continue and have a geopolitical disaster on your hands. And we don't want that. You shouldn't want that either. The Europeans are furious about this. Zelensky, whose entire political position depends on the war continuing, is in shock and deep anger. And he's been, I think, told to come to Washington to meet Trump, where Trump will lay it out for him, lay it out to him person to person, and will explain it to him in ways that perhaps just possibly Zelensky might begin to understand. Having said that, Zelensky himself is never going to agree to this. We're going to see him push back in every possible way that he can. As Alex correctly said, it was not a coincidence he went to London. He's got Keir Starmer basically in his pocket. He's going to try and get the British to make trouble. He's going to try to get the Europeans to make trouble. Putin warned against this in the press conference. He said, I hope the Europeans will take a constructive approach, that they won't engage in provocations and intrigues. We know that they are going to be obstructive, provocative, and are going to engage in intrigues. But they cannot change the realities on the ground or the wider economic and geopolitical picture. Everything is now played out. And I don't know that the peace agreement is going to be signed in Moscow. I would have thought that would be a bit too much. But we are heading towards a comprehensive peace, which is and can only be Istanbul Plus. So that's my summary of the situation.
So I really liked his kind of summary of that. He obviously knows a lot more about these types of things than I do. And those guys really keep up on that kind of stuff. But before we move on, I would like to go back a little bit, just a little bit. This piece of evidence that I like to just pull up every once in a while and flash. It's kind of like, when people like to whip their dick out. I don't whip my dick out. I whip out this Ro Khanna article. This is on his website. It's part of the Congressional Record. And this is from March 27th of 2018. Congress bans arms to Ukraine militia linked to neo-Nazis. And there's just one line I want to show you in this that caught my attention today. It's not that long, and we won't read the whole thing, but it kind of starts out with, a little noticed provision in the 2,232-page government spending bill passed last week bans U.S. arms from going to a controversial ultra-nationalist militia in Ukraine that has openly accepted neo-Nazis into its ranks. Now, the next slide here has this is, from the article on Ro Khanna's website from 2018. But this slide has a line in it, they kind of go through, a little. House passed spending bills for the past 3 years have included a ban on U.S. aid to Ukraine from going to the Azov battalion, but the provision was stripped out just before the final passage each year. So we were funding. So this is the line I think that really stood out to me. If you go down, to the second to last paragraph here, it says, the United States has been aiding and training Ukrainian forces in their fight against Russian-backed separatists since 2014 and recently expanded that aid to include arms. The omnibus includes about $620 million in aid for Ukraine, including $420 million in State Department and Foreign Operations funds and $200 million in Pentagon funds. So this article is from 2018, and he says flat out, we were funding insurgents. We were funding. Now, the way that they frame it, obviously, is, they're to fight Russian-backed separatists. But what we were basically doing was funding militias to cause problems with the people who in Ukraine who were still kind of like pro-Russian or, wanted to be friendly with Russian or with Russia in that instance. It's what we do. And they can never clean up the full, there's always some piece of evidence laying around. And I just want to show you this one last clip from Bill Maher's show, because this is another reason these people are so upset that Trump is going to end this. They're all on the take. They're all getting money from it. And this reporter from The Atlantic on Bill Maher's show, this is just a clip I just love to show, where listen to what she says. She's I forget her name. She
I think
says
that there's the eternal folly that wars are won quickly, which we learned twice that wasn't true recently. And I think that the Russian engagement in Ukraine is going to last for many, 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 many years to come, weakening that state considerably.
Many years.
And it's terrifying. I don't know.
Okay. A school principal
It's terrifying.
at a Florida...
It's so terrifying, you guys. Imagine having to fight in the war. But again, that is a reporter from The Atlantic. She got the memo. This is the new Afghanistan. So these people were planning on this being a money train that they could funnel billion. Like, you saw how much Ro Khanna said we were spending there back in 2014, 2018. We were sending almost what was it, like $500 million. There was I don't even remember. It was like 420 million here, 200 million there. So this idea that Putin just suddenly invaded Ukraine because he's a madman is very provably false. And I commend Trump for following through on attempting to bring this to an end. So that is going to kind of blend into our next segment about the Russiagate thing, the Russia hoax. Because again, these people will not let go of this. Even though the vast majority of people with brains understand this was completely fabricated and manufactured, that Hillary Clinton paid an FEC fine for the Steele dossier, and I didn't put that slide in my goddamn slideshow, but I'm just going to pull it up right now because just for historical record, I want to remind you. Yeah, you see it. This is CNN. FEC fines. Yeah, their ads always fuck with me. FEC finds Hillary Clinton campaign and DNC over Trump-Russia dossier research. This is from 2022. The dossier was compiled by retired British spy Christopher Steele. It contained unverified and salacious allegations about Donald Trump, including claims that his campaign colluded with the Kremlin to win the 2016 election. Trump's campaign had numerous contacts with Russian agents and embraced Russian help, but no one was ever formally accused. Even that is complete nonsense. See, even within a story like this, where their entire narrative has been blown apart, they're still trying to paint it as like, well, he was actually talking to Russia. I mean, they really do like Russia, you know. These people are ridiculous. So Aaron Matei and Steve Schellenberger were on Megyn Kelly. Is it Megyn Kelly? From Fox News. I always forget her name. One of the blondes from Fox News. I'm pretty sure it's Megyn Kelly. Anyway, I like this clip because it's a little long, but they kind of go through in detail what the bullshit is. And Megyn Kelly kind of sums it up in a way that I think is concise, a lot more concise than most people. But what they're doing here too, and I want to show you too, just to blend this all together. This is the cover of the New York Times post Trump's Putin summit. Look at these headlines. Look at just how Cold War era tainted these people's brains are. Trump backs off ceasefire demand in Ukraine war, aligning with Putin. He's aligning with Putin, you guys.
Russia
did it. No.
Russia
did it.
Russia
Did it.
I want to talk to you. Okay, I can first.
They want to know now.
Okay. Trump bows to Putin's approach on Ukraine. No ceasefire deadlines or sanctions. I lost all respect for this paper a long, long time ago, but you're about to lose you're about to find and lose even more respect for these people as I show you this clip right here. This is just because they cannot let this go. They have to pretend that it's all still true. So let's talk about this. This is good stuff.
We've been waiting to get to.
As part of the assessment, the CIA had the dossier. Remember that compilation of unsubstantiated allegations dug up by a British spy about Trump's ties to Russia, attached as an annex to the assessment.
Mm-hmm.
The assessment was not based on the dossier. It didn't play a role in the conclusions. But what the report is essentially saying is that this unsubstantiated document.
So what was it based on then? That's the other thing they don't ever. It's all based on like intelligence community gossip. If it's not based on that,
called the dossier, it should never have been attached in the first place. And because it was attached, it casts some doubt on the entire claim.
This is a doozy, Aaron.
First of all, note the language he uses to describe the so-called dossier. He calls it unsubstantiated. It's a collection of conspiracy fiction. It's a complete lie. Every FBI effort to verify the dossier just kept leading to the fact that there's nothing here.
I can't remember who said it on one of the things. So a couple different things just to add on to what Aaron's saying here. First of all, the FBI offered like $1 million reward, multi-million-dollar rewards for anyone that could corroborate any of the stuff in the Steele dossier. And one of the agents said that they had like a line-by-line breakdown of it, and every single line of it was false. They couldn't prove a single line in that dossier.
That Christopher Steele is a fraudster. And Schmidt waters that down by calling it unsubstantiated, as if it still might be true, because he's clinging.
And
on
doesn't
to
call it the
possibly-
Steele dossier either.
Yeah, right. It's fiction. It's just complete fiction. It's like it's conspiracy fantasy that Hillary Clinton paid for, which I didn't hear him mention there, and that the FBI relied on, and it's just a complete joke. So that's the first thing. And then also he says that this was attached. A summary of the Steele dossier was attached as an annex, but it wasn't in the main body. He's ignoring the fact that now we know from the recent declassifications that actually there's a footnote in the body of the intelligence community assessment, and it says see annex, but by which they mean see the Steele dossier. So in trying to put forward this idea that Russia was trying to help Trump, they reference in the body of the ICA, not just as an annex, they have a footnote referring you to the annex, which means the Steele dossier is in the body of the ICA.
And let me just reiterate what Schmidt claimed. He said the assessment, that intelligence community assessment, was not based on the dossier. It did not play a role in the conclusions. And so first we are disputing the basic premise there. It effectively is in the assessment. It is referenced in a footnote. The footnote that supports Putin was trying to help Trump says, look at the exhibit, look at the appendix, and specifically look at the dossier. That is in the body of the report as the proof of one of the most, or if not, it is the most controversial piece of the assessment, which is Putin did this to help Trump get elected. Keep going.
What I love about Aaron too is if you follow Aaron's work, it's clear that he's not like a Trump supporter. He's not a fan of Trump, but he's a journalist. So he calls balls and strikes like he sees them, regardless of what the popular consensus is, which is so rare in this day and age.
Yeah, and according to these recent disclosures, John Brennan was pushing for the inclusion of the dossier because, as he told his counterparts, he said it just rings true, which speaks to the fact that John Brennan was attached to a conspiracy theory that Trump and Russia were in cahoots and that Russia was trying to help Trump. And of course, Schmidt ignores that. And so if the director of the CIA is campaigning for the Steele fiction to be included and is saying that it rings true to him, does Michael Schmidt really want to argue that a report produced under Brennan's direction isn't influenced by the Steele dossier? Especially
another thing that people leave out of this conversation a lot is the fact that John Brennan and Clapper and the people who kind of push this were set up to work for Hillary Clinton, for a Hillary Clinton administration. So they have a real motive here as well.
When it's referenced in the body of the report as a footnote. So he's completely omitting the countervailing facts undermine his narrative, which is, again, it is the norm.
All the analysts, all the Russia experts are like, we can't include this. This is total garbage. Brennan's insisting on it. The FBI is insisting on it. It's in the classified appendix, by the way, which at least 200 people get, but we know leaked like crazy to all the journalists to create the perception that somehow this document was legitimate. We know that that same fraudulent document, this fiction that Aaron describes, was used to get the wiretapping, the warrants for the wiretapping. I mean, it's this hugely important document. So for Schmidt to sort of go, oh, it wasn't really important to the ICA, it's just straight up gaslighting at this point.
The CIA assessment that we've been discussing, that Ratcliffe.
And this is the New York Times. The New York Times. They won a Pulitzer for their reporting on this. Of course, they're not going to just go, well, we fucked up.
Released says the Steele dossier was used to support the conclusion that Putin aspired to help Trump, and reads as follows. Ultimately, agency heads decided to include a 2-page summary of the dossier as an annex to the ICA with a disclaimer that the material was not used to reach the analytic conclusions. However, by placing a reference to the annex material in the main body of the ICA as the fourth supporting bullet for the judgment that Putin aspired to help Trump win, the ICA implicitly elevated unsubstantiated claims to the status of credible supporting evidence, compromising the analytical integrity of the judgment. The House Intel report.
So, like, after all that legal gibberish, do you even give a shit about any of this? Because that's the problem, I think, with a lot of this is once you like really have to dig into it, you're like, who fucking cares? It was like 10 years ago. You know what I mean? Also, I don't think anyone's going to go to jail over it, but I do think it's good that Tulsi Gabbard, who was smeared as a Russian asset, is releasing as much, making a play on transparency on all the stuff, because at the very least, these guys should go down in history as crooks.
The other, the HIPSI, that also just came out thanks to Tulsi, also states Brennan, then CIA director, refused to remove the dossier from the ICA and said, doesn't it ring true? Contradicting public claims by Brennan that the dossier was not in any way incorporated into the ICA. That's what Brennan wants us to believe. We'd never incorporated it in the ICA. It was a nothing burger to us. The dossier was referenced in the ICA main body text. This is HIPSI telling us the truth. It is referenced in there, as you just pointed out, Aaron.
I just want to take a quick aside here and bring in our pal David Korn from Mother Jones. Let's get his take on the Russiagate scenario real quick.
Russia, I wrote a book about it. Trump colluded with Russia. I wrote a book about it. Matt Taibbi is a bad person. Trump colluded with Russia.
Okay, I'm sorry. I apologize in advance for that.
ICA annex. The ICA sourcing errors involving the dossier violated so many intelligence community directives that the text would normally not have passed first-line supervisor review at CIA, FBI, or other intelligence community agencies. Moreover, the dossier made outlandish claims and was written in an amateurish conspiracy and political propaganda tone that invited skepticism, if not ridicule, over its content. Still sticking here with the Hipsy conclusions. 2 senior CIA officers, one from Russia operations and the other from Russia analysts, argued with Brennan that the dossier should not be included at all in the ICA because it failed to meet basic tradecraft standards, according to a senior officer present at the meeting. That same officer said Brennan refused to remove it, and when confronted with the dossier's many flaws, responded, yes, but doesn't it ring true? And then you get Michael Schmidt doing cleanup in aisle 7 with, the assessment was not based on the dossier. It did not play a role in the conclusions. This is so dishonest. It did play a role. It was an important role to support the most important conclusion. And the fact that it was in there in any way, in the annex or in that footnote that referenced the annex, was extremely controversial amongst the most seasoned Russia experts within the intelligence community, including in the CIA itself.
I don't know if you remember this either, but this is how I remember this going down. Do you remember when the Podesta emails came out through WikiLeaks and all of this like dirty laundry got aired from the Hillary campaign? That was when the Russia collusion thing really started. That was when this really started.
Russia
did it. No.
Russia
did it.
Russia
Did it.
It was almost like their panicked response to like, oh, they're like, oh, fuck, like the emails got out. God damn it. Russia. It was Russia that did it. Like Russia hacked us. Then you dig into that and you're like, okay, what's the evidence that Russia hacked us? Well, this company we paid millions of dollars to, like, we contracted for millions of dollars to say that Russia hacked us, say they did. And then that you find out that company testified under oath. They had no actual proof that actually happened. And then you start to get, piece together a little bit of a picture of what's going on here.
And the reason they were overruled is because the CIA director said it smells true. Where was that in Michael Schmidt's reporting, either in the newspaper or sitting on the Daily?
And what's funny about all this is if you were someone who was skeptical of all these claims, Russia interfered, Russia hacked the DNC, Trump-Russia collusion, you were called a apologist for Russia, for Trump, a conspiracy theorist. And the line was, how dare, this was the consensus of the U.S. intelligence community. I mean, this was done on serious work. And James Clapper and John Brennan would go on CNN and MSNBC where they worked as on-air analysts and say, this was robust intelligence. Well, now we're getting, like, the picture we're getting from all this declassification was that actually this was just the consensus of a few people, James Clapper, John Brennan, and a few of the partisans. And they had all these people under them pushing back, including, we learned this week, Mike Rogers, the head of the NSA, saying, you're not showing us the intelligence to reach your most important conclusion that Russia hacked and leaked Democratic Party emails, which was the allegation that kicked off Russiagate. When Donald Trump, at his July 2018 summit in Helsinki with Putin, said that that Putin gave a pretty strong denial that Russia interfered. And he's like, I have no reason to doubt him. There was a national freak out. John Brennan said that Trump was nothing short of treasonous, by the way, which is ironic for people not complaining about, Tulsi Gabbard accusing others of treason. Well, this is what John Brennan and everyone was saying about Trump for years, including when Trump dared question the intelligence consensus. It turns out Trump and
I remember that so well because I was one of those people who clung to the Rachel Maddow world for a while even after Trump won the first time. It didn't take me long to get soured on it, I was already a little bit pissed off at them for shafting Bernie Sanders, but yeah.
Everybody else who refused to take the word of John Brennan and James Clapper were actually agreeing with all the lower level intelligence officials who Clapper and Brennan overruled.
It's just stunning. I mean, it's just, I'll tell you, I was one of those, right-leaning people who had trust in these agencies for most of my reporting career. I really did. It's stunning. It's still stunning to me to see the veil come down and see how corrupt they were and what liars they were.
Megyn Kelly out here showing you how naive she is.
What partisan hacks. It's a lesson well learned. All right, here's the last one, and this is a doozy too. Stop 57.
The FBI director, Kash Patel, declassifies a piece of intelligence that he claims shows that this conspiracy, it actually originated with Hillary Clinton.
That's how vindictive and vicious the former leadership structure here was. They withheld and hid documentation and put it in rooms where people weren't supposed to look. And it's a good thing we're here now to clean it up.
Yeah, because they were set to have big appointments under a Hillary Clinton administration, and then she lost. And they were like, what? That was not supposed to happen. I was supposed to be the director of national intelligence or the secretary of state or whatever, said John Brennan and James Clapper.
And you're about to see a wave of transparency.
But are you saying?
And what evidence does Patel offer to support that claim?
An email between Clinton allies in which they claim that Clinton personally approved a plan to tie Trump to Russia. But what
she paid an FEC fine for it, douchebag. She paid an FEC fine for making up a fake dossier to tie Trump to Russia. That's on record. I just showed you the CNN article.
Patel doesn't say is that a previous special counsel that was appointed by Trump's Justice Department to look into the Russia hoax determined that the email was likely a fake.
Wow.
That Russian intelligence officials had taken.
So what he just said right there too, sorry to keep breaking in here, but I have to say this. That's a good example of what conspiracy people would call the deep state. That's a guy, a Trump appointed Trump, like, so that's the kind of good guy that these types of like entrenched people can lean back on. They're like, well, Trump's Department of Justice appointed a judge that said it's fucking bullshit. Yeah, that judge was probably one of the holdovers, or that DOJ person was one of the infiltrators who was there to make sure that things continue the way. Do you remember the op-ed that they wrote? Like, we are the steady state. They literally wrote an anonymous op-ed when Trump was elected the first time, like just letting people know that, hey, it doesn't matter who you vote for. We're here to make sure that things keep going the way that we want them, regardless of who wins the election. That's the real silver lining to the Trump era, is all these people just like full mask off,
Taken a range of hacked emails and made them into a composite that depicted Clinton as the originator of the conspiracy.
And presumably, the FBI director, Kash Patel, would have known that and yet still released it and treated it as a smoking gun.
Correct.
Amazing there. By the way, if you just listen to their express words, in a courtroom, you would object that this was improper impeachment of Kash Patel, because first he says it was a fake. And then he says, actually, what they did was they took actual emails they had hacked and created a composite. So the ultimate email he's saying was fake, but he's essentially admitting there, Aaron, that the underlying data was real and was from actual hacked emails they got when they hacked these entities like the Soros-related entities.
So, quick sidebar here. I don't know if you remember, if you're an old school, George W. Bush era lefty like me. Back in the day, they did this exact thing to Dan Rather. They gave Dan Rather some fake transcripts that said George Bush dodged the war. I don't remember the details of it, but basically Dan Rather went on the air and reported on these documents he was handed, and they weren't real. Now, the underlying truth that the documents supported was real. Like, Bush dodged the draft. Like, he didn't have to go fight. He found a way around it. But that didn't matter because Dan Rather used fake documents. So that's the move they're trying to do here. It doesn't matter if what the document says is real at the end of the day. This document is fake. Therefore, you're using fake documents as a source. Therefore, your point is moot. That's the fucking kind of games these cunts play.
Surrounding Hillary Clinton and the DNC. But your thoughts on this claim?
Well, again, the irony, these people are complaining about relying on supposedly fake information when they promoted the Steele dossier, for example, which is a collection of conspiracy theories funded by Hillary Clinton. So it's just a bit rich for them to try to claim a high ground here. I've been cautious about these hacked emails. We're told they come from Russian intelligence. Let's even take that on faith, although I'm not even sure if that's true. But I'm not sure if I take all these emails on faith. Durham is uncertain. He says, I don't know if these are all genuine, if they're partly fake, fully fake. And I think that is the line that we should take. We don't know for sure if they're true or not. If they are true, it's more evidence of what we already know. And that's my key point. We don't need these emails to know exactly what happened, which was that Hillary Clinton framed Trump as a Russian agent. I mean, it's beyond dispute. Months before these allegedly Russian emails were written, the Hillary Clinton campaign hired Christopher Steele via Fusion GPS. Christopher Steele put together a bunch of fiction about Trump and Russia being cahoots, Trump being blackmailed by Putin. Christopher Steele funneled his conspiracy theories into the FBI. He meets with an FBI agent in early July. It gets back to the FBI. A few weeks later, the FBI opens up its Trump-Russia investigation and uses the Steele dossier as source material. We only learned, I believe, in October 2017. That's when the Hillary Clinton campaign finally admitted that they were secretly funding the Steele dossier. There was a Clinton effort to frame Trump, and that's what the New York Times cannot grapple with because they were a part of peddling that conspiracy theory.
And all Schmidt's doing here, by the way, the trick he's pulling is he's pointing to a single part of that really large declassified annex and saying they went to the Soros guy. He said it wasn't him. Even in that interview between the FBI and the Soros guy says that some of the emails did sound like him.
Right.
He didn't say for sure that it wasn't him at all. So, again, it's like there's so much complexity here, but the big picture remains the same, which is that Schmidt is creating straw men and dismissing them as a way to dismiss this much larger body of evidence. And that really what it shows is just a huge amount of information, potential criminal activity that the FBI decides not to pursue. And instead, basically creating and manipulating intelligence in order to paint Trump as a Putin puppet.
What do you think the source for David Corn's book was?
Trump colluded with Russia, meant dying. He is a bad person. I wrote a book about it. Meant dying. He is bad.
So before we close this out, I just want to show you real quick an example of how much these New York Times reporters love to sniff their own farts.
Trump is about to call me. Can't trust what they tell us.
Anybody who ever makes him look weak, he attacks back.
That's right. They made an entire documentary about their coverage of a fucking fake story.
Trust is built over time, and it can be lost easily.
And that's why no one reads the New York Times anymore.
We have a left that doesn't want to hear what the other side has to say, and we have a right that feels the same way.
I love that they try to pretend like they're in the middle somewhere.
I have no sources, and I want you all to know that we are fighting the fake news. They are the enemy of the people.
We just got kicked out of the White House briefing.
Look how exciting this looks.
I think you'd either have that or you don't.
Would it be fair to characterize that story as wrong?
Yes. We went back to our sources.
I love how they have that in the trailer.
Would it be fair to characterize that story as wrong?
Yes.
Yes.
We went back to our sources. We're confident in the story.
Pick on one of us, it means you have to deal with all of us.
Unique moment in the American history.
President of the United States who is under federal indictment.
Right, I'm gonna
hate you guys.
That is a story.
This American carnage stops right here and stops.
They even had like a zoom in on Russia in the trailer.
Trump colluded with Russia. I wrote a book about it. Trump colluded with Russia. I wrote a book about it. Anti-EB is a bad person. Trump colluded with Russia. Trump colluded with Russia. Anti-EB is a bad person.
Moving on. If you've been following what's going on with Candace Owens and the Macrons, things have gotten really interesting recently, and there's a tie-in, of course, here. I wanted to show you this. This is kind of a real quick sidebar here. But this again is why these people are so upset to lose this Russia thing, that Trump's making good with Russia and trying to like make peace and be cool with Russia, because Russia has been the convenient scapegoat for everything. Russia did it. Oh, the Democrats suck. Why can't they win elections? Russia did it.
Russia
Did it? No, no.
Russia
Did it?
Russia
Did it?
Why are black people protesting in the streets?
Russia
Did it? No, no.
Russia
Did it?
Russia
Did it?
Is Russia. So let me just show you this real quick. These people are scum of the earth. And I think one of the things that this kind of proves is that they don't really have much of a case here. But let me just let Candace do the talking, because this is actually a pretty funny tie-in to the Russiagate hysteria right here.
Situation where people do not believe in organic traffic, and it really shows you how much control they have over the state media, that they're shocked that somebody on the outside got interested in this case. It's super interesting, so they're like, it must be, of course, Russian collusion. It must be Russian collusion. That's the only thing it ever is, guys. Come on, wake up, look alive. Okay, I know it's Monday, but look alive. It's always got to be Russia. Now, regarding the matter of Russian collusion, the FT reports, quote, the investigators found that once Owens' Becoming Brigitte series was released, Russian state-controlled outlets reported on it. It was covered on Tsargrad, a TV channel led by Konstantin Malofeev, who the researchers described as an ally of Russian President Vladimir Putin. They found that Russia's RT had posted about Owens more than 30 times since 2018. They did not find evidence that Owens had met Russian officials or state media personalities or had direct personal or business links to Russia. But Owens has interacted on social media with Alexander Dugin, a Russian nationalist and a philosopher, the investigation found, with the two reposting each other's posts multiple times. We have to slow that down, because this is a level of clinical insanity that it's rare to reach. This is actually aspirational in many ways. RT, which is a massive publication, maybe the biggest publication in Russia, their evidence is that a political figure in America has been discussed or tweeted about on RT 30 times in the span of 7 years. Okay, now who knows? It could have been 10 on the same day. It could have been because, I don't know, Kanye and me wore White Lives Matter. They give us no details. And maybe they reported on it because me and Kanye West wore White Lives Matter shirts in Paris, by the way. I forgot to include that in your report. Ooh, what's that? Have you explored the Kanye connection? Have you? Just why were we wearing those White Lives Matter shirts at a fashion show in Paris? Hanging it out there. I know right now the Élysée Palace is watching and looking, going,
Douglas Murray was asked for comment, and he had this to say.
You're an anti-Semite.
So I just wanted to show you that even these disingenuous scumbags who are going after Candace Owens in Europe are using the like, well, she might be a Russian sympathizer, she might be a secret Russian, and it's crazy how quickly people forget that the McCarthy era, that it used to be the far right that smeared liberals and anti-war people as communist sympathizers or Russian assets or whatever, and now that script has completely flipped to where the liberal left people are the war pigs, neo-McCarthyites, calling people who want to end a war Putin sympathizers, or in this case they just need something to smear her with, because the whole story with Candace Owens is pretty crazy. And I'm not going to comment on whether or not what Brigitte Macron's gender is, but if you kind of watch what Candace is getting at, it wasn't even her story. She just kind of picked it up from these French women who were reporting on it, who were being censored in Europe. So the fact that they're out here trying to smear her now as a Russian asset, I think says a lot about the legitimacy of their case. Let's put it that way. So I got a couple more stories for you tonight before we shut it down. These late night streams, I got to drink a couple cups of coffee to really get up the energy after a long day of work to do these streams, but I'm here. I'm doing it.
Yeah, we here now. Stupid.
So I would like to talk about this. Oh, did I lose the slide? I must have. I don't need the slide. So we're going to talk about Russell Brand and Marjorie Taylor Greene. And I have to say, I actually like Marjorie Taylor Greene quite a bit. And I don't agree with her on everything. She's definitely not, the type of person I would seek out. But I respect anyone who has the courage of their convictions and can kind of like push the envelope a little bit and live their truth, so to speak, without worrying about what the popular or mainstream, consensus says or does about them. And I think with her, it became pretty apparent to me early on the reason she was being smeared so hard is because she was, touching on some third rails that people just aren't really allowed to talk about. But she did this interview with Russell Brand, and there's a bunch of stuff in it that I want to discuss because she said some things that are very telling. And let's throw it on right here. Let's have a look at it.
That's going to be a door that's open for radicalism. What's happening right now?
Okay, hold on one second. Yeah, something's tripping with my StreamYard, but that's okay. Back to Marjorie Taylor Greene here.
Party, and they didn't want to. They more were dragged kicking and screaming into supporting Donald Trump. And now, but they've all come in, and whether they...
Okay, so this is really good material here, because what I'd like to do here is make an analogy between Marjorie Taylor Greene's, the Marjorie Taylor Greenes of the right, and the insurgent candidates that we chose to represent us on the quote unquote left. Maybe probably the best example I could give you of that would be, hold on a second, this lady.
Start bringing the ruckus on the Democratic Party. That is our job. New York Post had this alleged information and was trying.
So, okay, let me just play that one more time here.
Local courage. Start bringing the ruckus on the Democratic Party. That
is our job. So the reason I want to draw this comparison here,
they're all
listen to what Marjorie Taylor Greene said once again right here.
President Trump if he fails them. That's going to be a door that's open for radicalism.
Sorry.
What's happening right now is the Republican Party, and they didn't want to. They more were dragged kicking and screaming into supporting Donald Trump.
So we had that opportunity with Bernie Sanders, right? The establishment did not want to support him, much like the Republican establishment weren't having Trump. But the voters said, no, fuck you. And people like Marjorie Taylor Greene said, no, fuck you. And now he is the, leader of the party, and the party has drastically changed. I played a clip last week of one of Trump's surrogates saying that when people have money to spend, you see growth. That is not a typical Republican economic talking point, right? So the point I just want to make here is that respect to the Marjorie Taylor Greenes and the Matt Gaetzes, the people who actually pushed their party to take on what the voters wanted, where the Democrats, the AOCs of the world, and as we're going to see, I'm sure soon, the Zoran Mandami or what, Cory Booker's, all these people that get absorbed in the Democratic Party and then just become another stock and trade piece of shit. At least, with these people had the nuts to kind of like pull their party in the direction they wanted it to go. So you have to show them respect for that, because for some reason the Democrats could not make that happen.
And now, but they've all come in, and whether they really truly believe or not, they're all wearing their MAGA hats and pretending to cheerlead behind them. But here's the warning for the Republican Party. If
Kind of like how even though Bernie got smushed by the Democratic Party, since Trump won anyway, they're like, oh yay, fight the oligarchy with Bernie.
you can't go out and talk about deep state actors that committed treason and election fraud and rich, powerful elite cabals if you're not going to hold these people accountable. The base has passed it. That has been red meat that's been dangled out for years now. I mean, since 2017.
Imagine if Bernie Sanders, after Joe Biden had won, went on talk shows like this and was like, listen, I told my people to vote for Biden. He's got to do something with healthcare. The base ain't having it. They're going to fucking not vote for the Democrats if he doesn't do something about it. Can you imagine them doing that? No fucking way in hell that would ever happen. But here you have these people, these insurgent people who want to change the nature of things, actually having the balls to tell the party establishment, no, fuck off. Like, you're going to do what we elected you to do.
We've been hearing about Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton and Susan Rice and Samantha Powers and all these people, James Comey, Brennan, like all these people. But yet, if there's never any accountability, the base is like, tell me why I should care. And that's actually where it's coming. That's how, it's a dangerous situation to continue to say these are the bad guys and then never hold them accountable. But the Republican Party doesn't realize where they are in the big picture of things. They have an opportunity to actually correct the wrongs and actually to turn the ship around and get the right course going for America. Actually care about the American people. Turn your policies back to America first. Stop spending so much damn money. Really reduce spending. You talk about it on the campaign trail, but actually do it. Republican Party has a chance to do all these things. If they fail, and this is their one-time opportunity. If they fail, and I think it's during this year and next year is the 2-year window. If Republicans fail to follow through, they're never going to get the chance again, because I'll go back, Russell, those 20-year-olds and those 30-year-olds they're hurting.
Yeah.
Here's where the American people are today. Young people.
They were hurting during the Bernie Sanders campaign, and the Democratic Party wouldn't listen to them.
So my children are 22.
I mean, we're all hurting. Let's be honest. Unless you're doing real, there's some people that are doing all right. There's some people that are doing real well, and then everyone else is kind of hurting.
25 and 27. 2 of them are already married. 1 is still in college. Their generation, the 20s, even the 30-year-olds, and then of course the kids coming up behind them, they literally have no hope for the future. Right now, rent is ridiculously expensive. Buying a home is totally out of reach. They don't know if they'll ever be able to buy a home. And a few of them have, but most of them cannot. They cannot buy a home. They cannot afford it. Their credit cards are maxed out. They go month to month, credit card bill to credit card bill, paycheck to paycheck. Their cost of living is extremely expensive. And then let's look at their insurance. Health insurance is unaffordable in America, absolutely unaffordable. That came on from the Affordable Care Act, which is Obamacare, which totally laid the groundwork for government control of health insurance. And what it did is it reduced the amount of competition in the industry and a lot of health insurance.
That's where I'm going to have to stop her. No, that did not come on with Obamacare. I'm sorry, Marjorie. Sure, we can make arguments that Obamacare was a handout to the insurance industry. It was. So was COVID. So was every fucking thing. The vaccine laws in the country. I just did a piece last week about RFK ending this program where they were giving kickbacks to doctors to force fucking people to. It has nothing to do with Obamacare. Obamacare worked around the edges slightly and made a few tweaks, but even the good tweaks. I remember reading about this thing called the 80-20 rule that one of the few good things Liz Warren has done. I shouldn't say few good things, but one of the good things she's done in politics, where she wanted to make a rule where if you're a healthcare company, you have to spend at least 80% of your revenue on actual healthcare. Imagine that. And only 20% of it can be on overhead and CEO salary. Like, that's a good law. That's and people say like, oh, you're gonna stifle innovation. To them I say, how much money are you taking from the healthcare industry? Because no one in their right mind believes that. No one gets sick and ends up in the hospital and they come, you're like about to die. And they're like, how are you going to pay for this? And you're like, well, I don't know, but I really don't want to crush the innovation of the amazing medical care system in America. Anyway, she's dead wrong about Obamacare. Health insurance was shitty before Obamacare. And this is one of the areas I greatly diverge from the MAGA people. We need public health care. That doesn't mean we need to take it away from everybody else. That doesn't mean you can't, if you're rich and you want to buy your own plan or your own Cadillac plan, you can't have that. But that will keep these companies honest. Having a public market or a public option to fall back on for tax-paying citizens will keep other companies' costs in line with a version that doesn't have to have a lot of overhead, because it's and then you get into the whole, I don't want to go down a whole rabbit hole with this, but an insurance pool is subsidized by the younger, healthier people. And that's how it works. When you're young and healthy, you can subsidize the older people. And then when you get old, the younger people subsidize you. That's socialism. The same kind of socialism that built our roads and schools and funds our police and fire departments and libraries. It's America has been so propagandized into retarded nonsense when it comes to socialism and communism. And I think that's part of Marjorie's problem on this particular issue. The other part, I wouldn't be surprised if she's taking donations from someone in that realm that's like, we need to get rid of Obamacare and get back to
Insurance companies went out of business. Prices have skyrocketed since then. Car insurance is unaffordable for them. Absolutely unaffordable. Every single year, car insurance goes up and up and up. They're taxed in every single way. They're taxed when they buy something on a sales tax. They're taxed when they renew their tag every single year for their car. They pay taxes on every single part of their life. So here we are at $37 trillion in debt, and these young people are going, what the hell are you doing? How am I going to survive in the future if you fail them again? You fail them again. They're not going to believe and trust Republicans anymore. They'll turn on President Trump if he fails them. But here's what's going to happen. That's going to be a door.
This is my
open
favorite
for radicalism.
Yes. Radicalism. So I love that. Like, as if like the Trump movement isn't kind of radicalism. It's kind of like, yeah, well, like, I guess it's not. I don't know. I just think that's funny that it's like, oh, they'll turn on Trump. Yeah, people are done with the partisan thing. They're not going to just vote for you because you're a Republican or a Democrat anymore. You have to do something. You have to like actually fucking deliver on what you say you're going to do. I mean, Trump's a lame duck president too. He really doesn't have, he's in it at this point for the legacy. You know what I mean? Like, he doesn't have to do shit. He could just sit there and scratch his ass for 4 years. He's not running again. Even as much as he likes to joke about a third term or make comments about it to fucking send people into a, emotional fucking tirade spiral. It ain't happening.
And a whole different kind of leader than America has ever seen before.
Yes.
With a whole different type of agenda and a different type of plan, but it will be extreme and it will be radical. And you want to know something? It's going to be very appealing. It's going to be like tickles and
kind of like Trump was, right? Jesus Christ. Do you hear yourself? And I think she's subconsciously kind of alluding to Zoran Mamdani, right? Who, again, I've said I like the guy, but I'll believe it when I see it. Seems like he's a pretty safe shoo-in for mayor of New York. But let's see if he actually does anything. And with that, Marjorie Taylor Greene talks a good game about cutting funding and everything, but not one of these motherfuckers wants to cut police or military budgets. And I'm going to play you my hit single real quick, featuring Marjorie Taylor Greene, and it's called Fund the Police, and it features Marjorie Taylor Greene and your homegirl, AOC. Enjoy.
Tell the truth, Marjorie. Oh yeah, AOC, I'm going in. Fund the police, even though they won't.
What the hell?
Your neighborhood's predominantly brown.
Something's wrong with StreamYard, I will tell you that. Filthy bastards. All right, let's start this over.
Do you swear to tell the truth, Marjorie? Oh yeah, AOC, I'm going in. Fund the police, even though they won't come around. If your neighborhood's predominantly brown, And if you call them, they'll most likely show up and uncategorically shoot at minorities. Despite that shit, we gotta fund. Give corrupt mother lovers more badges and guns. Our police state is too big to fail, so let's fund the prison complex till we all live in jails. Tweeting at me cause I'm in Congress, dropping cash on the military complex, searching my timeline for racism. Cops know that I got mad funding to give them. Say OC and you wanna date me, cause I'm fresh, yo, put you in the friend zone. Criticize me, I will scream violence, then send the cops to your house just to silence you and your family's right to speak. Then I'll give $1 billion to the Capitol Police. I'm in the house, yo, we got the purse strings to fund the police state and do all the worst things. But I'll never do anything out there like vote against war or for universal health care. Fund the police. Fund the police. Yeah, girl. Fund the police. Fund the police. Yeah, fund the police. Fund the police.
There it is, my hit single, Marjorie Taylor. There's a point in there when I was recording it where every time I hear it, I can hear myself starting to crack up. I think it was the part where I was saying dropping cash on the military complex. Anyway, last story of the night. If you're on Twitter much, you've probably seen it, but there's for some reason lately, there's this new like anti-weed sentiment with conservatives. And I see it a lot. They're like, weed ruined everything. And they never can point to anything specific that we did that's so terrible, other than like they don't like the smell of it, which is fine. That's fair. If you want to say like it should be banned from certain public places, that's fair. But this idea, like whatever happened to like, I'm a freedom-loving conservative who just wants people to live and let live. No one's out here trying to ban cigarettes. If I came out and tried to ban cigarettes, you'd say that was ridiculous, or I try to ban you from having a glass of wine after dinner, So it's such childish behavior. But let me start this by showing you, my slideshow was fucked up. But let me show you this. Let's see, did I put these back? This is what happens when I don't prepare as well as I should. No, I actually did prepare, but for whatever reason, StreamYard is not uploading my flippin' thing correctly. Here, I'm going to try this. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to save this. I'm gonna take a quick break so I can do this last story right. I'll be right back. Give me just a second.
This alleged information and was trying to publish it without any corroboration, without any backup information. Local courage. Start bringing the ruckus on the Democratic Party. That is our job. New York Post.
Okay. Sorry about that. It was user error. I forgot to save my damn slideshow. So here is Matt Wall. So back to our conversation here. Kind of took a little sidebar, but there's been a lot of anti-weed sentiment amongst conservatives. So we're going to talk about that. And this was kind of one of the first, times I saw it among like a prominent conservative influencer. This is Matt Walsh. And Matt says, Cenk, can you please cite an example of a single American city that has been measurably improved by marijuana legalization? I can think of a bunch that have turned into even more disgusting, unlivable, reeking cesspools. I'm not aware of any counterexamples. Please provide one. because Cenk said Trump is considering moving marijuana down to Schedule 3 drug, but guys like Matt Walsh and Michael Knowles are against legalizing marijuana. Good. It'll make them more unpopular because that's a mental position. Most Americans believe in freedom and are for legislation. Cenk, rare W for Cenk on that one. Let me just to answer Matt Walsh's question real quick. Let's go to let's go to our good friends at Google and see how much money the state of Colorado has made from marijuana legalization. As a business-minded conservative, Matt Walsh, I would imagine you can appreciate this. How much does Colorado make on marijuana tax? Calendar year total 2021. $423,000 total to date. So that's interesting. Cannabis taxes have not solved Colorado's budget woes. Colorado Department on Revenue. Yeah, I mean, okay. Colorado among states with the biggest decline in marijuana revenue reached. Interesting. I'll have to look into that. However, I will say that nothing changed for the better or the worse in LA or any big city when it came to people were going to smoke it whether it's legal or not too. So I smelled plenty of marijuana before it was legal. What they should do is have speakeasies and places people can go, like a bar where it's not in your face or whatever, and whatever. But it's this like this like old lady mentality, and it has to make me wonder if these people are taking money from tobacco companies or something. But I'm going to do you one even better. Here's Mike Cernovich, and listen to this. This is like one of the most unhinged things I've heard in a long time. This is absolutely just like bad shit fucking crazy.
If we want to use drugs, we should be able to use them.
My body, my choice.
Be able to do whatever we want. Our bodies. We want to use drugs, we should be able to use them. Go live in Somalia. You can do that. Oh, wait, you don't want to live in Somalia. You want to live in the West.
Go live in Somalia? What the fuck does that have to do with anything?
You want to freeload. I'm tired of pretending like this is something that it's not. Libertarianism, these talking points is freeload.
Freeload. So he starts from a position where if you smoke marijuana, you just freeload. I got news for you, buddy. I smoke marijuana and I fucking work 40 hours a week. I do fucking hard labor. It's not all hard labor, but I definitely fucking work my ass off. And I show up on time every day. And there are millions and millions of people just like me. Bill Maher has been an open pot smoker for a very long time. I mean, do I have to keep going? Michael Phelps won 8 gold medals. Shut up, grandma.
On the culture.
Actually, that's an insult to grandmas. I'm sorry, grandmothers. I love my grandmother.
And civilization.
My grandmother was pro-legalization.
Built by Christianity. Do I like that? No, I wish the libertarian experiment had succeeded, but all of the fundamentalists were right. Jerry Falwell, the church ladies, all those people that I made fun of were right.
Right wing, yes, not correct though.
To my embarrassment, I thought marijuana legalization would be a good thing. I was wrong. I made fun of the church ladies. I was wrong. And implicitly, everybody is admitting we're wrong because we bring in all these Somalis and people don't like that. Nobody wants to go live in Somalia. You want to live in a Western world. And you want a free ride and do whatever you want. But if you want to do whatever you want, there are places you can go to do that. Oh, but then you won't have the benefits and the protections of order and liberty and of Western civilization. We all see it, guys. You're not serious thinkers. It's 2025. Weed has been legalized in some states for almost 20 years. We know how it ends. Go read a book or update your mental model of the world. This is all tedious.
So yeah, like I said, just one of the dumbest things I've seen in a long time. Weed heads and libertarians are the biggest freeloaders out there. It's 2025. Your burnout talking points have no power here. Okay. Legalize weed, which I initially supported many years ago, has been tried. Everyone but the weed heads regret it. Ruins everything. He fails to give any specifics as to what it ruins. Right? It's so anyway, I had to touch on this because I'm very curious as to why this is happening. And I'm just going to end it here with a little back and forth between Cenk and Blakely on that, just to go back and show you too. This is the initial tweet. Cenk, can you please cite an example? This is Matt Walsh crying about having to smell weed. Oh, I had to smell weed at the park. My kids had to smell it. Oh, that's what these guys are like. My kid got a whiff of some weed at the park. I don't know what I'm gonna do. Matt, you keep obsessing about the smell. That's easy. Ban smoking it in public, like open container laws. The problems in the cities isn't pot, it's meth and fentanyl. And you can't take people's freedoms away because of your feelings about the aesthetics of particular cities. Well said, Cenk. He's not always wrong. I love the right wing will say murdered children from mass shootings is okay because that's the price of freedom, but then melt down about marijuana legalization because it stinks. I don't like weed either. I don't like the way it smells. I get over it because I care about freedom. Good point. I mean, I don't like a lot of shit, but I'm not out here trying to ban it. You know what I mean? If it's not bothering me, I'm not going to go online and cry about, oh, I smelled weed in the park. Anyway, that's about all I've got for y'all tonight. Aside from maybe going into my clip folder real quick. Let me just take you out with some some of these little clips I have saved here. It's a good one. Oh, this is one of my absolute favorite clips of all time. I'm just let's
hand it over to the president of Ukraine, who has as much courage as he has determination. Ladies and gentlemen, President Putin.
Well, that was
President Putin. You can beat President Putin. President Zelensky. I'm so focused on beating Putin, we got to worry about it. Anyway, Mr. President.
I'm better.
You are a hell of a lot better.
I'm better. Yeah. Don't you miss that guy? Don't you just miss Joe Biden? I know I do. What else do we got here? Let me oh, here we go. Here's a good one. This is one of my favorite too. Great, just great material here. It's clip time.
And Wall Street spending billions of dollars in lobbying. When the Clinton administration, when Alan Greenspan said what a great idea it would be to allow these huge banks to merge, Bernie Sanders fought them and helped lead the opposition to deregulation. Today, it is my view that when you have the three largest banks in America are much bigger than they were when we bailed them out for being too big to fail, we have got to break them up.
Secretary Clinton, you have to be able to respond. He brought you up.
You know, I respect the passion and intensity. I represented Wall Street as a senator from New York, and I went to Wall Street in December of 2007, before the big crash that we had, and I basically said, cut it out.
Cut it out.
Homes. Quit engaging in these kinds
You guys, stop it.
Secretary Clinton.
Guys.
Congress does not regulate Wall Street.
Oh.
Wall Street regulates Congress.
All right, guys, I'm fading fast, so
And saying, please do the right thing.
No,
kind of naive.
I'm going to take you out tonight with my white rural voters are a threat to democracy track. I love you. I'm tired. Thank you for joining me. And sorry I didn't get to the comments tonight, but I will respond to you in text. Until next time, tell me what I'm wrong about. Like and subscribe, all that good bullshit. And again, Love y'all. Be safe out there. We'll see you next week.
Why are white rural voters a threat to democracy at this point? Voters, a threat to democracy. 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 White rural voters. White rural voters. White rural voters. The threat to American democracy. Voters, a threat to 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 democracy.
Day chat, find a mate chat, open up BOK ass, okay yeah, profile picture looking tight chat, nice chat, got your bio reading right chat, precise chat, but before you find a date chat, you gotta wait chat, gotta go vaccinate chat, get it straight chat, girl you look good, want you vax that thing, I'm using a handsome young brother, want you vax that thing up, dating real life, you need to vax that thing up, feeling freaky all night, you need to vax that thing up, girl you look good, want you vax that thing, I'm using a handsome young brother, want you vax that thing up, dating real life, you need to vax that thing up. Feeling freaky all night, you need to vax that thing up.
I know you can't stand it, no holding hands, chick. But when we get the shot, we gon' be romancing. Girl, you could be the queen after quarantine. We could meet up at the spot and we could do the thing. Internet date chat, I'm your mate chat. Download the app, shorty, you ain't gotta wait chat. I love it when you hold me, ain't playing a mode.
Alex.
Yes, sir.
I've got the perfect answer for the ADL. They are going to have to listen up. What we did is we brought Netanyahu with us.
I mean, I'm in the twilight zone right now.
Netanyahu, what do you have to say? What do you have to say to Alex Jones right now, Nick Fuentes and Ye? It was bad. It was bad for Trump to meet with Nick and Ye. Okay. I had no idea your voice is going to sound like that, Netanyahu.
So you don't like Benjamin Netanyahu?
I just heard about this guy 2 weeks ago since like the tweet, and I thought he had a funny name. I heard he's like really into like, he's like a super killer and I could die for saying this. So in case this the last time you ever hear from me.
Well, look. I'm glad you guys are here.
I'm a stud. I'm ballsy. I don't take no shit from anyone. I smoke my stogie anywhere I want. I don't have to find a hideout place like you.